This is Luke Paulson, the Catholic Conservative, and welcome to the news of the week for May 25th, 2024. And if you enjoy these videos, do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. Be a Harrison Butker. Harrison Butker gave a graduation speech last year, but it is making the rounds again. As a strong man and a Catholic, his speech encouraged the graduating class to get married and then start a family. And as we all should know, waiting until marriage to start your family and having a degree are two of the best ways to prevent poverty, at least if you look at statistics. This amount of class is highly commendable and should be respected. Meanwhile, this year there was a speech by another athlete, Travis Kelce. His speech included chugging a beer, because this is a wonderful example of morality that needs to be emulated by a graduating class. This just speaks to the overall degradation of American society, and the vast difference between two entirely different worldviews. Speaking of college graduations, Biden's HBCU debacle, Brandon received an honorary degree from Morehouse. It had to be honorary because he lacks the mental faculties to actually take any classes. And even when he was in school, he finished 76th in a class of 85 in law school. Even Snopes was willing to admit that Brandon's claim of graduating in the top third were bogus. Either way, the ceremony itself was ripe with him walking where he was not supposed to, and shaking hands with those he was not supposed to. He told the graduating class that he was working to undermine the Supreme Court to get student debt forgiven. The decision of the Supreme Court is the law of the land when Democrats support it. Examples include Dred Scott and Obamacare. However, when they disagree, like with Andrew Jackson and Brown v. Board of Education, they do not have to follow it. There was one student who turned his back on this speaker, but it is unclear if this was also because the student supported Hamas. However, let us talk about his opponent in the upcoming debate. Cohen cannot stop lying. Michael Cohen, when placed on the stand, was found to have lied over and over.
3 weeks later.
And over.
Many months later.
And over.
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting and they had to hire a new one.
And over again. Each time he was called out on it. Now we know that he admits to stealing from Donald Trump's company, so he is a liar and a thief. The fact that he is a star witness for the Democrats is actually quite fitting. Either way, the only persecutor—
Don't you mean prosecutor? No!
With a case that has gone to court so far is about paying hush money to a floozy. I have said it before and I will say it again. President Trump keeps getting stronger with even more allies. Speaker Johnson visits. Speaker Mike Johnson visited the courthouse where Donald Trump's persecution is taking place. Whether this was in solidarity with the persecuted or to score points,
Only Poppins would know.
Korean affirmative action hire was asked about this visit and did not want to comment. We already know that at least one Democrat is willing to admit that if the impeachment had gone through—
And, you know, I go back to the responsibility of Congress here, because had the Senate actually gone through with the impeachment of Donald Trump, we would not be in this situation.
this lawfare would not be happening. Brandon's press secretary refused to comment on the trial, saying that it was related to the election. Now, normally I would chalk this up to her not wanting to give any straight answer. However, multiple members of the cabinet are already facing charges for violating the Hatch Act. This forbids the president from using his power to influence elections. So either Korean affirmative action hires admitting that this is
a small part of a much grander scheme,
or she does not want to answer. However, let us go to South America, where the majority have a bit of common sense lately. Argentina inflation drops. We know that Brandon is lying about the inflation rate, saying that he brought it down. Even CNN is willing to admit that this is a lie. Maybe the DNC needs to make sure that their check does not bounce next time. Moving on, Argentina's Javier Milei has overseen massive cuts to the government bureaucracies over his short time in office. One thing that is a natural consequence of this is lowered inflation. Now, Argentinian inflation is down to single digits. I am just waiting for the equivalent of the deep state in Argentina to claim that President Milei is being controlled by Russia. It worked for the sheeple in America. However, let us go to another socialist country, California. California teacher won a suit. A California teacher was awarded $360,000 after she was wrongfully terminated. With that sum, she could potentially not work for 5 to 10 years. What exactly did she do wrong? She did not accept the gender nonsense that her woke school was pushing. She was even asked to not have her faith in the classroom. The fact that this happened in California is beyond shocking. If there is any hope of righting the ship of state, it is stories like this. Teachers have rights that do not end at the school door. While I do not know many details about the case, it may be like Masterpiece Cake Shop from a few years ago. Recall that he won that suit not because he has a right to refuse service, but because the state was bullying him the entire time. I want to believe that the court did this out of justice, but I cannot rule out that there was a legal technicality. However, let us go across the pond to the UK in regard to this same issue. British Commission on Science. The UK author of a transgender study has claimed that US groups are misleading the public. She claims that there is no evidence to support the routine prescription of cross-sex hormones to children as a health benefit. I could have told her that before the study came out, but I guess I am just a bigot. This study led to England and Scotland halting these drugs to minors until more research could be done. These kids are at a higher risk of suicide because we are affirming something unnatural. Remember what Paul told the Church of Rome? How, since the people did not want to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them up to sinful and unnatural affections. England is going secular even faster than the United States. And while Richard Dawkins is finally admitting that what he did was wrong, it is far too late. However, let us talk about Pope Francis and how he is weakening Christianity. Is he an illegitimate pope? I mentioned before that I chose the username Catholic Conservative because I believe that this is where the truth is. Early on in this channel, I defended Pope Francis. But it was not too long ago that I decided that I could no longer do that, and this only confirms it. Pope Francis was interviewed by 60 Minutes. He was asked what he would say to people who have no hope. Instead of giving the gospel, he told the reporter that he had comfort in the brave men and women who protect us every day. Then he told the reporter that people were basically good, contradicting what Jesus told the rich young ruler. He also claimed that it was madness that America would close the border to migrants. Naturally, he says this within a walled city with a constant security detail, but I digress. This country was never closed to migrants. It should be closed to illegals. There is a difference. Pope Benedict XVI is one of the only popes to ever step down. Pope Benedict IX was believed to have been followed by an anti-pope. Pope Gregory XII stepped down as a result of a schism which may not have been entirely his choice. I am starting to believe that the first pope to step down in 600 years did not do so entirely of his own accord. Pope Francis is much more woke, much more accepting, and worst of all, much more liberal. Or on the raid. We are learning so much more about the raid on Mar-a-Lago. President Trump is protected by the Secret Service as a former and maybe future president. His home was raided to get documents that were locked away securely and had 24-hour surveillance. Meanwhile, Brandon had documents stored in his garage and in his Penn State office. Now, why do I specifically mention Secret Service? Because even the FBI has to follow the Secret Service when something happens under their jurisdiction. If it is the Secret Service's jurisdiction, they do not want any other person who could harm the person who occupies the Oval Office. The same thing should have applied to Mar-a-Lago, where Brandon authorized deadly force to execute the raid. In other words, if the FBI had killed anyone during the raid, they would have argued for qualified immunity. Not that Biden's handlers would care. The goal of the raid was to destroy Donald Trump's reputation. And the deep state believes that the ends justify the means. Death of Raisi. Ibrahim Raisi is dead. And I only have one thing to say about that. The president of Iran died in a helicopter crash and Tehran is officially in mourning. And the United Nations put the flag at half-mast for some reason. However, it is much more likely that the people are celebrating internally. And again, other people are celebrating openly. Women are bearing flesh and drinking alcohol while fireworks go off. And I think the most ironic part is that the helicopter was American and from 1970. The technology of that helicopter is outdated. Just like him. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke, Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion. And do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. But before you go, on the left I have last week's video, but you may also enjoy the video on the right.